Nicknamed the Punisher, Australia underworld figure, former biker club member and boxer Sam Abdul Rahim was shot dead at an apartment complex in the Melbourne suburb of Preston. According to
You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.
24-year-old Benjamin Nevers and his girlfriend were fast asleep at their Dearborn Heights, Michigan apartment when two intruders broke in through the kitchen window and held his roommate at gunpoint. Knowing the culprit would likely enter his bedroom, Nevers grabbed his gun and waited while his girlfriend hid under the covers. During the shootout that ensued, one of the intruders shot Nevers in the foot and his girlfriend in the back. Nevers shot the intruder, later identified as Philip Price, in the leg. Home surveillance cameras captured the exchange of gunfire, as well as Price's attempt to flee the scene. In the video, Price could be seen collapsing outside due to his leg injury. He was charged with 21 crimes, including assault with intent to murder and armed robbery. Nevers and his girlfriend both survived after being hospitalized for their injuries, and the search for the second suspect is ongoing. Number 14. Washington plane crash. 67 people were killed on Wednesday, January the 29th, when an incoming American Airlines plane collided head-on with an Army Black Hawk helicopter that was carrying out a training exercise near Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. Both aircrafts immediately broke apart and landed in the Potomac River below, killing everybody aboard both the helicopter and the airplane. The tragedy occurred in some of the most tightly controlled airspace in the US, leaving many wondering how it happened in the first place. President Trump has suggested that incompetence played a role in the accident, and he speculated that diversity and inclusion programs implemented by Joe Biden and Barack Obama are to blame for the hiring of those he believes are responsible for the crash. But the situation remains under investigation for the time being, and the official findings have yet to be revealed. Number 13. Sam Abdul Rahim. Nicknamed the Punisher, Australia underworld figure, former biker club member and boxer Sam Abdul Rahim was shot dead at an apartment complex in the Melbourne suburb of Preston. According to reports, he was walking to his car at around 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, January 27th, when the shooter approached and opened fire on him in broad daylight. 32-year-old Abdul Rahim died at the scene, despite his girlfriend's efforts to perform life-saving measures. And while the woman managed to escape without any physical injuries, she's reportedly traumatized by the tragic violence she witnessed. The burned-out getaway car and a second burned-out vehicle were located in two different locations nearby, and the culprits remain at large. A police spokesperson said that they're unsure how many people were involved in the crime, but it's fair to say there's more than one. Prior to his murder, Abdul Rahim survived multiple attempts on his life, and it's rumored that rival gangsters had put a $1 million bounty on his head. Police are urging anyone with information about the killing to come forward and share what they know. Number 12. Matthew Huttle. Just days after being pardoned by President Trump for his role in the January 6th, 2021 Capitol riot, 42-year-old Matthew Huttle was shot dead by a sheriff's deputy during a traffic stop for speeding in Jasper County, Indiana. The incident occurred on the afternoon of Sunday, January 26th, when a deputy attempted to arrest Huttle on Indiana State Road 14, near the Pulaski County line. An altercation took place during which the deputy fired his service weapon, killing Huttle at the scene. According to authorities, Huttle had a gun inside his car. A misdemeanor conviction for entering a restricted building had just been wiped from his record, courtesy of Trump. Huttle served 6 months in prison for the offense and was released in July of 2024. He had a lengthy criminal history, including several DUIs, battery, and failure to return to lawful detention. Huttle's defense attorney attributed his prior offenses to his years-long struggle with alcoholism, but investigators have remained largely silent on their findings amid the ongoing investigation into his death. Number 11. Machete-wielding attack in the Bronx. 34-year-old transit worker Taekwon Young was walking his pit bull, Chanel, in the Bronx on a Friday morning in January when another man's smaller, unleashed dog approached. The two canines started playing, while Young spoke with his wife on the phone. And while it seemed harmless, the other dog's owner became furious. Things went from 0 to 100 when the stranger reached into his pocket and pulled out a machete and threatened to decapitate Chanel, prompting Young to put his hand out in an effort to block the blade and protect his beloved canine companion. The machete-wielding man swung his weapon at Young, cutting off 4 of his fingers. Surgeons were able to reattach 3 of the fingers, but the 4th was never found. Young later told the New York Post that no one tried to help him at the scene, but that plenty of people stood around and filmed the incident on their phones while he pleaded for someone to call 911. His recovery is ongoing and the suspect fled the scene and remains at large.
Crazy.
Number 10. Michelle Zacco. A nationwide manhunt is underway for 32-year-old Michelle Zacco, who's suspected in 3 murders in 3 different states. Described as armed and dangerous by federal authorities, Zacco is accused of supplying another suspect, Teresa Youngblood, with the firearms that were used to fatally shoot 44-year-old U.S. Border Patrol agent David Malland during a traffic stop near the Canadian border in Vermont. 21-year-old Youngblood has been arrested and is being held without bail as she awaits her next court date. In addition to her alleged ties to Malland's death, Zacco is also wanted for the double murder of her parents, Richard and Rita Zacco, who were killed in their Delaware County, Pennsylvania home in January 2023. She's also a person of interest in the homicide of an 82-year-old Vallejo, California landlord. Zacco, Youngblood, and the other suspects in this series of cases reportedly have connections to a bizarre vegan cult called the Zizians, but the specific nature of their involvement in the group and its connections, if any, to the crimes have yet to be revealed. Number 9. Cain Villarreal and Lane Birch. A pair of Texas teenagers are facing criminal charges after following home some elementary school students home from school and asking them if they wanted to be kidnapped as part of a TikTok prank. The children immediately told their parents about the incident, and Cain Villarreal and Lane Birch were arrested in Kyle after being identified as the suspects. They're each charged with making terroristic threats, marking one of several recent incidents involving TikTokers who got arrested for pranks in the last month. Number 8. Shannon DePeraro Atkins. 46-year-old Shannon DePeraro Atkins is a drag queen from South Florida and a friend of the infamous so-called Tot Mom, Casey Anthony, who was acquitted of murder in 2012 following the suspicious death of her young daughter. But DePeraro was the one who landed in the spotlight last week following his arrest for making threatening statements against President Trump on the day Trump took office. Atkins reportedly made a series of concerning social media posts alluding to possible plans to harm the president. One post named several people who were assassinated, stating Lincoln, JFK, Reagan, Martin Luther King, and Trump. Unfortunately, one is still alive. Another post said, history is supposed to repeat itself. We haven't had an
He said, unfortunately, one is still alive.
assassination in years. After being alerted to the concerning content, police arrested Atkins during the traffic stop. He claimed he was just joking, but is facing a charge of written or electronic threats to kill, do bodily injury, or conduct a mass shooting or an act of terrorism. Number 7. Wood chipper tragedy. A Florida tree trimmer is dead after a freak accident that occurred during the early morning hours of Tuesday, January 28th. The man was trimming trees outside the Ocean Ridge Town Hall when he somehow got caught in a wood chipper, which pulled him into the machine headfirst, up to his shoulders. His co-workers rushed to turn the wood chipper off and save him, but by the time they pulled his body out of the machine, he had been decapitated. Authorities have yet to identify the man, whose family lives in Mexico, and are awaiting the return of his remains. Number 6. Mavia Gill. A 95-year-old woman who survived the Holocaust, Chernobyl, and COVID sadly passed away in a freak accident. Mavia Gill was crossing a street in Brooklyn's Bensonhurst neighborhood with her home healthcare aide when they were struck by a cargo van. The healthcare aide survived, but Gill died from her injuries. Gill and her family moved to Ukraine's capital, Kiev, to escape the Nazi invasion of the country during World War II. They moved to the US in the years following the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. Gill lost her husband during the COVID-19 pandemic, but she survived it. all until the recent traffic accident. The driver has not been charged in connection with the case. Number 5. Gideon Castro. A suspect has finally been arrested in connection with a cold case homicide that occurred nearly half a century ago in Honolulu, Hawaii. Sophomore Dawn Momahara was found strangled to death on the second floor of McKinley High School in March of 1977. She was lying on her back, partially clothed, and had an orange cloth tied around her neck. Momahara was pronounced dead at the scene, and the case went cold for decades. Castro and his brother were questioned in connection with the case, but the authorities never publicly identified a prime suspect. In 2019, police retested the evidence for DNA. A profile was yielded, and in early 2025 it was connected to Castro, who is now 66 years old. Castro was arrested at a Salt Lake City, Utah area nursing home on suspicion of murder and is currently awaiting extradition to Hawaii. Number 4. Rory Talbot. 30-year-old Rory Talbot is facing a murder charge for allegedly stabbing his father to death at their family's multi-million-dollar
These people killing their parents like nothing.
London townhouse. The victim, 75-year-old Mark Talbot, was pronounced dead at the scene during the early morning hours on a recent Friday morning. Rory was arrested and made a 2-minute court appearance several days later. He has yet to enter a plea and remains in custody for the time being. Meanwhile, authorities have not revealed a suspected motive for the crime. Number 3. Salwan Momika. 38-year-old anti-Islam activist Salwan Momika was fatally shot at an apartment in the Swedish city of Södertälje, and the country's Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson, believes a foreign power may be behind the hit. Momika was reportedly live streaming when he was gunned down. The incident came amid a noticeable rise in violent crime levels across Sweden, and it's believed that Momika may have been a target due to his reputed habit of burning the Quran in public. 5 people have been arrested in connection with the shooting, which reportedly remains under investigation. According to the authorities, shootings are down in Sweden while explosions are on the rise. But violence in general is a big enough problem that Kristersson has said it'll take the entire century to fix it. Number 2. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. An arrest in the decades-old murder of the American rapper Tupac Shakur was finally made in 2023, and the man accused of killing him is now facing additional charges for an altercation that occurred inside the jail where he's being held while he awaits trial. 61-year-old Dwayne Keefe D. Davis was being escorted back to his cell at the Clark County Detention Center in Nevada when fellow inmate Rockland Hamilton approached him with fists up, ready to fight. A brawl broke out between the two men as a nearby security camera captured the violent interaction. In the video, Davis could be seen tackling Hamilton and putting him in a headlock. The men continued trading punches despite a corrections officer's repeated orders to stop, and were finally separated after guards pepper sprayed and separated them. Davis said he was standing his ground but refused to speak any further about the incident without his attorney present. He's now facing a battery charge in addition to the charges he was already facing in connection with Shakur's murder. Number 1. Tiffany Henyard.
What's up?
Tiffany is in there.
There's no shortage of controversy when it comes to Dalton, Illinois super mayor Tiffany Henyard. Her power has been consistently challenged in recent years, but she has steadfastly refused to relinquish her position, even as the deck becomes increasingly stacked against her. The latest incident involving Henyard occurred during a Thornton Township Board of Trustees meeting, where activist Jedediah Brown called her the B word.
Ooh, they clowning up in the meeting like that?
Henyard's boyfriend, Kamal Woods, confronted Brown, and a fight broke out between the two men. Instead of steering clear of the violence, Henyard reportedly immersed herself in the brawl, along with numerous other attendees. She was thrown to the ground and lost a shoe before security officers broke up the altercation. Henyard's attorneys claimed that their client was verbally assaulted and threatened during the meeting, while the Board of Trustees issued a statement condemning the violence altogether. In the meantime, Henyard's standing as mayor of Dalton remains in the balance as she faces a growing number of allegations regarding her misuse of funds, which has allegedly plunged the city into millions of dollars of
Oh my
debt.
goodness.
They hate you. You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.